The forge hall smelled like burning metal and fear. 47 recruits stood in straight lines, their bodies representing a dozen different species from across the galaxy. Some had scales, some had fur, some had skin that looked like polished stone, and one, standing near the back, had soft pink skin and calloused hands that never stopped moving. Danny Reeves was not supposed to be here. 6 months ago, he was fixing tractors in Montana. Now he stood in the Galactic Combat Academy on Vorith 9, surrounded by aliens who could crush him with a single blow. Life was funny that way. Instructor Jellavon walked into the room, and every recruit went silent. The Mordathi warrior stood 8 feet tall, with 4 muscular arms and a face covered in ritual scars. He had trained soldiers for 200 years. He had seen species rise and fall. Nothing surprised him anymore, or so he thought. Listen well, Jellavon said, his voice deep like thunder. Your first real test begins now. You have 72 hours. Your task is simple. Make 1 weapon. He gestured to the piles of raw materials scattered around the massive room. Metals of every color. Polymers. Crystals. Organic compounds. Wood. Stone. Everything a weaponsmith could need. The weapon must be functional, Jellavon continued. It must pass inspection. It must be combat-worthy. No AI help. No templates. No copying. Just your hands and your mind. A Gorvian recruit raised his massive stone-covered arm. Instructor, what kind of weapon? Any kind. Blade. Blunt. Ranged. Your choice. Jellavon's 4 eyes scanned the room. Most of you will take 40 to 60 hours. Some will fail. This test separates warriors from pretenders. Danny raised his hand. Jellavon looked at him with mild curiosity. Humans were rare at the academy. This one was only the 3rd he had ever trained. Question, human. Is there a limit on how many we can make? Silence. A few aliens laughed nervously. The Fenori beside Danny, a fox-like creature named Nessic, stared at him like he had grown a second head. Jellavon smiled. It was not a kind smile. Craft as many as you wish, human. Most struggle to finish one. Understood, sir. The instructor dismissed them, and the recruits scattered to claim workstations. Danny did not rush. He walked slowly around the room, examining the materials. His eyes moved constantly, calculating, measuring, planning. Tira, a tall plant-based Sylvani female, set up her station next to his. Her movements were graceful and careful. She had already selected her materials for a single elegant blade. You asked a strange question, she said softly. Did I? No one makes more than 1 weapon. The time is too short. Danny started arranging his workstation. He set up not 1 workspace, but 6. Different metals went into different heating units. Tools were organized by size and function. It looked like chaos, but Tira noticed there was a pattern to it. What are you doing? She asked. Getting ready. For what? Danny looked at her with a small smile. For the assignment. Across the room, Bruck the Gorvian watched the human with narrow eyes. His species was known for their strength and patience. They were not known for speed. A single weapon would take him the full 72 hours, and he accepted that. But the human was setting up like he planned to build an army. The timer started. 72 hours. Go. Most recruits began with careful planning. They sketched designs. They tested materials. They measured twice before cutting once. This was the smart approach. The safe approach. Danny did not sketch anything. He picked up a piece of steel and started heating it immediately. His hands moved with a speed that seemed wrong for such careful work. Within minutes, he was hammering metal into shape. Nessic paused her own work to watch. Human, you did not plan. I planned. Danny did not look up. Just did it in my head. That is not how weapon crafting works. It is for me. By the end of the first hour, Danny had the rough shape of a combat knife. By the second hour, he was sharpening it. By the third hour, it was done that he set the finished knife aside and immediately started on something else. A crossbow frame this time. Tira dropped her own tool. That is not possible. What? You finished? In 3 hours. Danny shrugged. It is a simple design. My grandfather taught me when I was 12. He kept working. The crossbow took shape under his hands. At the same time, he had metal heating for a 3rd project, and a 4th, and a 5th. Word began to spread through the forge hall. Whispers passed between workstations. Aliens stopped their careful, methodical work to glance at the human in the corner. He was not stopping. He was not slowing down. He was building like his life depended on it. Jellivon received a message from one of his assistant instructors. He read it twice, certain it was a mistake. Then he walked to the observation window and looked down at the forge hall. The human had 4 completed weapons on his bench. He was working on a fifth. It had been 10 hours. Jellivon felt something he had not felt in a very long time. He felt surprised. "What are you, human?" he whispered to himself. Below, Danny kept working. He had 62 hours left. He intended to use every single one of them. 20 hours into the test, and the forge hall had become 2 different worlds. In one world, 46 aliens worked carefully on their single weapons. They measured. They planned. They took breaks to eat and rest. This was the normal world. The expected world. In the other world, Danny Reeves had not stopped moving. 11 weapons sat on his workbench. 11. Complete. Functional. Ready for war. A combat knife with perfect balance. A compact crossbow with a smooth trigger mechanism. A weighted chain that whistled through the air. A set of throwing spikes that stuck into the practice target from 30 feet away. A spear with a reinforced shaft. A mace with a weighted head. A short sword with a double edge. A staff with metal weights on both ends. A gauntlet with 3 retractable claws. A curved blade designed for close combat. A small flail that could be hidden under a coat. 11 weapons in 20 hours. Less than 2 hours per weapon. Tira had given up any pretense of working on her own project. She stood at the edge of Danny's workspace, her plant-based body trembling slightly. Her species was known for patience. They could wait for centuries. But watching the human work made her feel like time itself was moving too slowly. "You do not rest," she said. "I rested." Danny was already working on number 12. Took 5 minutes around hour 8. 5 minutes is not rest. It is for me. Bruck the Gorvian approached. His stone-covered body moved slowly, each step making the floor vibrate. He had completed roughly half of his weapon. At this pace, he would finish with maybe 10 hours to spare. This was considered excellent progress for his species. "Human," Bruck said. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "I have a question." "Ask it." "What?" Danny paused for just a moment. "Why what? Why so many? You proved your skill with the first one. You proved your speed with the fourth. What is the point of the rest?" It was a fair question. Danny thought about it while his hands kept moving automatically. Hammering, shaping, creating. "When I was young," Danny said, "my family had a ranch. Middle of nowhere. Nearest town was 3 hours away. Nearest repair shop was even further." He held up the half-finished weapon. It was going to be a hatchet with a reinforced handle. "When something broke, we fixed it. When we needed something, we made it. My grandfather used to say that a man who can only make one thing is a man who will go hungry." Bruck considered this. "Your world was harsh. My world was Earth. Everything there wants to kill you. The weather, the animals, the diseases, even the plants sometimes." Danny smiled slightly. "Humans learned early that we needed tools to survive. Not just one tool. Many tools. Different tools for different problems." He finished the hatchet and set it aside. Number 12. He immediately started on 13. "Your species has stone skin," Danny said to Bruck. "Natural armor. Built-in protection. Yes. Tira's people can regrow lost limbs. Nessek's people have claws and night vision. The Mordathi have 4 arms and thick hides. Yes. All true." Danny held up his soft, vulnerable hands. "Humans have these. Just these. No claws. No armor. No venom. No special senses. Just hands that can hold things and a brain that can figure out what to make." He picked up a piece of metal and began heating it. "So we made everything. Weapons, armor, shelters, vehicles. We made things to make other things. We never stopped making because we could never stop. The moment we stopped was the moment something killed us." Tira understood now. It was not showing off. It was not pride. It was survival instinct buried so deep that Danny probably did not even know it was there. "You cannot help it," she said softly. "This is what you are." "I guess so." Danny shrugged. "My hands get restless if they are not making something. Always been that way." The door to the forge hall opened. Instructor Jellivon walked in, followed by 3 other senior instructors. They had come to observe. Word had spread beyond the training areas. Jellivon stopped at Danny's workstation. His 4 eyes moved slowly over the 12 completed weapons. His 4 arms hung at his sides, completely still. "Human. Sir. How many?" 12 finished. Working on 13 now. Jellivon picked up the combat knife. He tested its balance. He checked the edge. He examined the handle. Then he set it down and picked up another weapon. And another. And another. Every single one was perfect. Not just functional. Perfect. The Academy record for this test is 4 weapons, Jellivon said quietly. Set by a Fenori master smith 60 years ago. I heard. Danny kept working. You have tripled that record. In less than half the time. Still have 52 hours left, sir. Jellivon stared at the human for a long moment. Then he looked at the other instructors. Their faces showed the same expression. Disbelief, confusion, and something else. Fear. Not fear of Danny. Fear of what Danny represented. Fear of what humans could do when they stopped holding back. Continue, Jellivon said. His voice was not steady. I will return. He left quickly. The other instructors followed. Danny did not notice. He was already halfway through weapon 13. 35 hours into the test, the forge hall was no longer a training room. It was a theater. Recruits from other classes had started appearing at the observation windows. Then instructors from other departments. Then administrative staff. Then military officers who happened to be visiting the station. The crowd grew hour by hour until the viewing gallery was completely full. They all came to watch the human point. 18 weapons sat on Danny's workbench. 18 different designs. 18 different purposes. Each one built from raw materials in less than 2 hours average. Danny was tired now. His eyes had dark circles under them. His hands had small burns from the forge and cuts from the sharp edges he worked with. He had eaten twice in 35 hours. Slept 0 times. But he kept working. Nessik the Fenori pushed through the crowd to reach Danny's station. Her 3 tails twitched nervously. Her species was considered the fastest crafters in the known galaxy. A skilled Fenori smith could make 1 weapon in 45 hours. That was the record. That was the standard. Danny had broken that standard 18 times. Human, Nessik said. Danny, you need to stop. Why? Because this is not normal. Because you are hurting yourself. Because you have already won. Danny looked at her with tired but steady eyes. I am not trying to win. Then what are you trying to do? He was quiet for a moment. His hands kept moving, shaping metal without conscious thought. It was like breathing to him. Like blinking. My grandfather, Danny said finally, fought in a war. Long time ago. Earth War. He told me once that he survived because he could make a weapon from anything. A broken chair leg. A piece of glass. A rock tied to a rope. He held up the weapon he was working on. It was a clever thing. A blade that folded into a compact size, then snapped open with a flick of the wrist. He said that the soldiers who survived were not the strongest or the fastest. They were the ones who could adapt. The ones who could make something from nothing. The ones who never stopped thinking, never stopped building, never stopped preparing. Nessik's ears flattened. And you believe stopping now would dishonor him? I believe stopping now would mean I did not try my best. Danny's voice was soft but firm. Every weapon I make could save someone's life someday. How can I stop when I still have strength to continue? The folding blade was done. Number 19. Danny set it down and immediately reached for more materials. In the observation gallery. Instructor Jellivon stood with the Academy commander. Commander Voss was an ancient Sylvani, her bark-like skin cracked with age, her eyes still sharp after 800 years of life. Explain this to me, Commander Voss said quietly. I cannot, Jellivon admitted. I have trained soldiers from 73 species. I have never seen anything like this. Is he cheating somehow? Using technology we cannot detect? No. I have scanned his workspace repeatedly. He is using only his hands, basic tools, and raw materials. Nothing else. Commander Voss watched Danny work. Even from this distance, she could see the efficiency of his movements. No wasted motion. No hesitation. Each action flowed into the next like water flowing downhill. His species is young, she said. Only discovered space travel 2 centuries ago. They were considered primitive. They were considered many things. Jellivon's voice was strange. Weak. Soft. Short-lived. Easy prey. And now, Jellivon gestured at the scene below. Now I am beginning to think we misunderstood them completely. Danny finished weapon 19 and started on 20. A set of brass knuckles with reinforced striking surfaces. Simple. Brutal. Effective. His classmates had stopped working entirely. Even the ones who had not yet finished their single weapon sat and watched. There was no point in competing anymore. This was not a competition. This was a demonstration. Tira approached Danny with a container of water. Drink. Thank you. He drank without stopping his work. His hands moved independently of his attention. How do you do that? Tira asked. How do you work without looking? Practice. Lots of practice. How much practice? Danny thought back. I made my first knife when I was 8 years old. Cut myself pretty bad. Made a better one the next week. Been making things ever since. 14 years of constant practice. More or less. Tira did the math. 14 years. Thousands of hours. Tens of thousands of individual items built, broken, rebuilt, improved. The human was not talented. He was practiced. He had simply done this so many times that his body knew the movements without his mind having to think. Your species does this, she said slowly. All of you. You practice things until they become automatic. We call it muscle memory. Danny shrugged. Our bodies learn patterns and repeat them without effort. That is terrifying. Danny smiled slightly. Only if you are on the wrong side of it. Weapon 20 was done. A brutal, ugly thing designed purely for destruction. 17 hours remained. Danny kept working. 50 hours. 21 weapons that Danny's hands were shaking now. Not from fear or cold, but from exhaustion. His muscles had been working for over 2 days with almost no rest. Any other species would have collapsed by now. Any reasonable person would have stopped. But humans, as the galaxy was slowly learning, were not reasonable. Bruck the Gorvian had finished his weapon 12 hours ago. A massive war hammer that suited his stone-covered body perfectly. He had passed the test. He could have left. Instead, he stayed. He brought Danny food. He brought Danny water. He stood guard at the edge of the workspace, his huge body blocking anyone who tried to interrupt the human's work. You do not have to do this, Danny said between bites of protein paste. I know. Bruck's voice was like gravel. I choose to. What? The Gorvian considered the question. His species was not known for quick thinking, but they were known for deep thinking. Because I have never seen anything like you, Bruck said finally. Because I want to see how this ends. Because I think I am witnessing something that will be remembered for a very long time. Danny nodded and returned to work. Weapon 22 took shape under his burned and bleeding fingers. In the observation gallery, the crowd had grown even larger. News of the human's performance had spread beyond the academy. Military commanders were watching through secure channels. Political leaders were receiving updates. Scientists were analyzing every movement Danny made, trying to understand how this was possible. Admiral Corvin of the Gorvian fleet stood beside Commander Voss. His stone body was decorated with medals and honors from 100 battles. I fought humans once, he said quietly. Commander Voss looked at him. During the border conflict? Yes, 20 years ago. We thought it would be easy. They were so small, so soft, so few in number. What happened? Admiral Corvin was silent for a long moment. We lost. Badly. They did not fight like we expected. They did not stand and face us directly. They hid. They ambushed. They set traps. They attacked at night when we could not see. They used weapons we had never encountered before. He gestured at Danny below. Now I understand. They were not fighting us with the weapons they had. They were building new weapons specifically to defeat us. Adapting. Evolving. Changing their tactics hour by hour. A species of weapon makers, Commander Voss murmured. Worse. Admiral Corvin's voice was grim. A species of weapon makers who never stop, who never rest, who see every problem as something to be solved with a new tool. Below, Danny finished Weapon 22. A war pick with a reinforced head and a balanced handle. He had never made one before. He had seen the design in a history book once. His hands remembered what his mind had forgotten. 50 hours, he whispered to himself. 22 hours left. Can I make 2 more? The answer, of course, was yes. He could make 10 more if he had to. His body would break before his will did. Tira and Nessik sat together in the observation gallery. Both had passed the test. Both had made their single weapons. Both now watched Danny with a mixture of awe and concern. He is going to hurt himself, Tira said. Probably. Nessik's tails curled anxiously. But I do not think he will stop. Someone should make him stop. Who? Instructor Joe Levon tried to suggest a break 6 hours ago. Danny smiled and kept working. Bruck tried to physically block his workspace. Danny worked around him. Tira shook her head slowly. I do not understand this. Is this stubbornness? Pride? Insanity? None of those. Nessic had been thinking about it for hours. I think it is love. Love. Love for the craft. Love for the work. Love for the act of creation itself. Nessic pointed at Danny. Look at his face. Even exhausted. Even in pain. He is happy. He is doing what he was born to do. Tira looked. Really looked. And she saw it. Danny's hands were raw and bleeding. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. His body swayed slightly with exhaustion. But his expression was peaceful. Content. Almost joyful that he was not suffering. He was thriving. Humans are insane, Tira said. Yes. Nessic agreed. But it is a beautiful kind of insanity. Weapon 23 began to take shape. A glaive with an extended blade. A weapon for keeping enemies at a distance. A weapon for someone who might be smaller and weaker than their opponent. A weapon for a human. Danny worked on it with special care. This one was not just a test piece. This one was something he would want to carry into battle himself. The clock ticked down. 20 hours remained. Then 19. Then 18. The galaxy watched and waited. 65 hours. 23 weapons. Danny could barely stand. He had propped himself against the workbench, using its solid weight to keep himself upright. His hands moved slower now, but they still moved. They still shaped. They still created. Weapon 24 was almost done. A fighting staff with metal caps on both ends and a hidden blade in the center. It was elegant. It was practical. It was the kind of weapon that could be carried openly in places where swords were forbidden. Danny had never made this exact design before. But his grandfather had described it once, during one of their long nights in the workshop. A weapon from ancient Earth. A weapon for travelers and monks. His grandfather had died 3 years ago. Danny still missed him every day. 7 more hours, Danny whispered. His voice was rough from dehydration despite the water Bruck kept bringing him. Just finish this one. Just one more. The observation gallery had gone silent. No one spoke. No one moved. Every eye was fixed on the human below. Commander Voss had dismissed most of the observers hours ago, but the core group remained. Instructor Jelavan, Admiral Corvin, Nessic and Tira and Bruck. The other recruits who had started this test together. They watched Danny's hands shake as he worked the final pieces of the staff into place. They watched him test the hidden blade mechanism. They watched him balance the weapon, adjust the weight, polish the metal caps until they gleamed, and then it was done. Danny set the staff down on the workbench, next to the other 23 weapons. He looked at them for a long moment. A complete arsenal. Enough weapons to equip a small army. All built by one man in less than 3 days. Then his legs gave out. Bruck caught him before he hit the ground. The Gorvian stone arms were surprisingly gentle as he lowered Danny to the floor. Is he alive? Tira ran to them, her plant-based body rustling with anxiety. Alive. Bruck placed a massive hand on Danny's chest. His heart beats. His lungs breathe. He is simply exhausted. Instructor Jelavan entered the forge hall. He walked to Danny's workstation and looked at the weapons arranged there. His 4 eyes moved slowly over each one, examining, evaluating, judging. Then he picked up the first weapon, the combat knife that Danny had made in the first 3 hours. He tested its edge. He checked its balance. He examined its construction. Perfect, he said quietly. He picked up the second weapon. The crossbow. Perfect. The chain. Perfect. The throwing spikes. Perfect. One by one, Jelavan inspected every single weapon. It took him nearly an hour. During that time, Danny slept on the floor with Bruck standing guard over him. The other observers waited in respectful silence. When Jelavan finished, he set down the final weapon and stood very still. All 24 pass inspection, he announced. His voice echoed through the silent forge hall. All 24 are combat-worthy. Not a single flaw. Not a single shortcut. Not a single piece of sloppy work. He looked down at Danny's sleeping form. In 200 years of teaching, I have trained warriors from 73 species. I have seen talent. I have seen dedication. I have seen natural gifts that seem touched by the gods themselves. Jelavan's voice grew heavy with emotion. I have never seen anything like this. This human did not just break records. He destroyed them. He made us question everything we thought we knew about the limits of craftsmanship. Admiral Corvin stepped forward. What do you recommend, Instructor? Jelavan was quiet for a moment. Then he reached down and picked up the final weapon, the fighting staff with the hidden blade. He held it carefully, respectfully. I recommend we wake him up, Jellivon said. I recommend we give him the recognition he deserves. And then I recommend we start paying very close attention to what humans are capable of. He looked at the arsenal on the workbench. Because if one human can do this in 3 days, imagine what millions of them could do if they had reason to. The thought hung in the air like a threat, or a promise, depending on which side you were on. Danny stirred in his sleep. His hands twitched, still moving in the patterns of creation. Even unconscious, even completely exhausted, some part of him was still building, still making, still preparing, because that was what humans did. That was what humans had always done. And that was what humans would continue to do until the stars themselves burned out. Danny woke up in the medical bay. Clean sheets, soft bed, machines beeping quietly around him. His hands were wrapped in healing gel, repairing the burns and cuts from 3 days of constant work. Bruck sat in a chair beside the bed. The Gorvian looked like a mountain that had decided to take a rest. You are awake, Bruck said. Apparently. Danny's voice was scratchy. How long? 14 hours. The doctors said you needed more rest, but your body refused to cooperate. Humans heal strangely. Danny looked at his bandaged hands. The weapons. Safe. Locked in Instructor Jellivon's personal vault. He said he wants to preserve them for the Academy's historical collection. All of them. All 24. Bruck made a sound that might have been a laugh. You are famous now, human. The entire galaxy knows what you did. Danny closed his eyes. Fame was not something he wanted. He had just been doing what felt natural. What felt right. What his grandfather would have expected. The door opened. Instructor Jellivon entered, followed by Nessic and Tira. They gathered around Danny's bed with expressions ranging from respect to concern to lingering disbelief. How do you feel? Jellivon asked. Tired. Hungry. My hands hurt. The doctors say you will fully recover within a week. No permanent damage. Jellivon paused. You were lucky. A few more hours, and you might have done real harm to yourself. Danny nodded slowly. He knew he had pushed too hard. He always pushed too hard. Another human trait the galaxy was probably going to learn about eventually. Nessic stepped forward. Her 3 tails were still for once, a sign of serious emotion. I have a request. What is it? Teach me. Nessic's voice was earnest. Not to be as fast as you. I know that is impossible. But teach me to be better. To think like you think. To see materials the way you see them. Danny looked at her for a long moment. Why me? Because you made 24 weapons in 3 days, and you were not even trying to show off. You were just working, like it was the most natural thing in the universe. Nessic's ears flattened. I want to understand that. I want to learn it. Tira spoke up. I want to learn as well. My people are patient, but we are slow. Perhaps human methods could help us. Bruck rumbled in agreement. My species could benefit from faster techniques. Even small improvements would matter. Danny looked at Instructor Jellivon. Is this allowed? Jellivon's 4 eyes showed something that might have been pride. Not only allowed. Encouraged. The Academy has officially requested that you share your methods with interested students. You will be paid for your time, of course. I do not need payment. Then consider it a recognition of your value. Jellivon reached into his belt and pulled out a small case. Speaking of which, he opened the case. Inside was a medal, gold and silver, engraved with the Academy's symbol. Danny had seen senior officers wearing similar medals. Decorations for exceptional service. The Vorith Medal of Excellence, Jellivon said. Given for extraordinary achievement and training. You are the first human to ever receive it. Danny took the medal with his bandaged hands. It was heavier than it looked. I just made some weapons, he said quietly. It was not that special. Nessic laughed. Actually laughed. You broke a record that stood for 60 years. You tripled the previous best. You worked for almost 3 days without sleep. And you call it not special? For a human, it was not. Danny looked at the medal. My grandfather could have done better. He was the real craftsman in the family. The room went quiet. Jellivon studied Danny with new understanding. You were not competing against us, he said slowly. You were competing against him. Against your grandfather's memory. Danny did not answer. He did not need to. Tira placed her hand gently on his shoulder. Your grandfather would be proud. I hope so. Danny's voice was rough. He taught me everything. Every technique. Every shortcut. Every trick. He said that knowledge was not worth anything unless you passed it on. He looked at Nessic, then at Tira, then at Bruck. I will teach you. All of you. Anyone who wants to learn. Danny managed a small smile. But I warn you. I am not an easy teacher. I expect hard work. Nessic grinned, showing her sharp teeth. We are students at the Galactic Combat Academy. Hard work is all we know. Good. Then we start tomorrow. Levon nodded approvingly. Rest today. Heal. Tomorrow you can begin changing how the galaxy thinks about weapon making. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. One more thing, human. The Academy has received 17 requests from military units asking if you would be willing to train their armorers. The Gorvian fleet alone offered a contract worth more than most soldiers earn in a lifetime. Danny shook his head. I am not a soldier. I am just a craftsman. Perhaps. Jelavan's 4 eyes glittered. But craftsmen like you win wars before they even start. Remember that. He left. The others followed, leaving Danny alone with his thoughts. He looked at the metal in his hands. Gold and silver. Heavy with meaning. Heavy with expectations. Somewhere across the galaxy, enemies of humanity were learning what one human could do in 3 days. Danny smiled. Let them learn. Let them fear, because humans had been building weapons since they climbed down from the trees. And they had no intention of stopping now.